Hey everybody, it's Chris, and I've been looking at the new Unearthed Arcana and all the subclasses that we've seen. These are all Forgotten Realms subclasses, and we're going to be getting them in a source book that should be coming out. I believe it's in November. They've now announced of this year. We're going to see that book, and these subclasses are going to be reviewed by the community, and we give them feedback. We can give them feedback on February 4th, and usually they keep those surveys open for, a week or so, and they take a look at that feedback, and we'll make changes based on our suggestions. And so I want to look today at the one subclass in this package that definitely it reads evil, right? Evil. And also, if you are a player who's played in groups where, maybe you have a combat and there's a few different enemies and you end up kind of mainly doing damage to one enemy, and you've been working them down and working them down, and you think, next round, I've got them. And then some other PC jumps in and steals your kill. Well, this is the subclass for that character. So we have the Scion of the Three Rogue subclass, and it says here, a Scion of the Three draws power from a group of malevolent gods known as the Dead Three. Bane, the deity of tyranny, Baal, the deity of violence and murder, and Merkel, the deity of death. So these three deities, when I really got into the Forgotten Realms, they got killed by the immortal Cyric, who became a god who stole their power, but they have since all kind of come back. And so that's why they call them the dead gods, is because they've all died and then come back. And it says here that, well, some rogues of this subclass pledge themselves ardently to these macabre gods. Others find themselves thrust on this path by a curse. I think, to me, this reads like the designers are desperately trying to find a way to suggest why a character who's not evil might go down this subclass. Because none of this reads curse to me. These are all just benefits. But if you wanted to play an evil character, thematically, this definitely reads evil to me. Okay, so we have a character class here that is basically centered on two things. Number one, finishing off wounded enemies and doing extra damage to them. And number two, making enemies frightened, giving them the frightened condition. So we begin at level 3, and we have two features. The first is Bloodthirst, and it says, if your sneak attack hits a bloodied creature, the target takes extra damage of the weapon's type equal to half your rogue level rounded up. So at level 3, that'd be 2 points. In addition, when an enemy you can see is reduced to 0 hit points, you can take a reaction and teleport to an unoccupied space you can see within 30 feet of yourself. You can then make one melee attack. You can use this reaction a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier, and you gain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So right away, this is an intelligence-based subclass. You're going to want to be intelligence forward with this character. Now, with the rogue, you can do dexterity and intelligence easily enough. And if we do the True Strike rogue, so a rogue that is going to be making attacks with True Strike, you can focus on intelligence first. But keep in mind that that reaction, including the attack involved, just says a melee attack. It does not say you can cast a spell, so you wouldn't be able to do True Strike with that. Now, the first part of this is not limited in use. So as long as the creature is bloodied, meaning it's below half its maximum hit points, then we can do this feature over and over again. In theory, you could do it an infinite number of times in a combat. In reality, probably not all that often. On round 1, probably you're not going to be able to use it at all, because unless you've had, allied party members bring an enemy down to the bloodied condition before your turn, then you're not going to have any bloodied targets. So this is something that I would assume is usually going to come up starting on round 2. And in most cases, I would assume you'd be doing, this extra damage once per round. Maybe not even. because first off, there has to be a bloodied creature on the battlefield, and there isn't always. Sometimes creatures are taken down one at a time. Parties often, they'll focus their damage. So you maybe have 3 big bad enemies, and when your turn comes up, one of them has already gone down, and the other 2 aren't bloodied yet. So then you wouldn't do this extra damage. And how long a combat lasts will depend how often you're going to be able to use this as well. But I've got to assume in most combats you might use this twice, and if the creature is really close to down and you hit it with that big attack because you're adding sneak attack damage, how often is it going to be where you would have killed that creature anyways without this extra damage, in which case this extra damage doesn't do anything for you? So I'm kind of thinking, if I was to guess, and it's definitely going to be different from table to table, from combat to combat, but if I was to guess how often you are actually going to inflict this extra damage in an average combat, I'd guess once. And so what makes me hesitant here is because if we look at the Assassin subclass, which actually has a very similar mechanical feature with Assassinate, they add their entire level to that damage. Now, when this damage occurs is very different. With the Assassin, it's always going to be on round 1. But here, it is probably not on round 1. So thematically, tactically, we're getting different abilities here, but I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, does this need to be half the rogue level? Like, couldn't it be the whole rogue level? I think it could. I don't think this would be overpowered if it was the entire rogue level. So in my survey, I'll probably suggest to them that I think this would be fine if it was your entire rogue level. So I'm thinking that part of it, it's a little bit underwhelming. Now, the nice thing is, when an enemy you can see is reduced to 0 hit points, you get to teleport and then attack, is that sure, that could happen on your turn. You might be the one who, there's a bloodied creature, you attack them, you sneak attack them, you deliver the extra damage, down they go, they're at 0 hit points, you go attack a different creature. However, you will not be sneak attacking them because you have already sneak attacked on your turn. But if somebody else reduces the creature to 0 hit points, then you can do it, and then you could, in theory, do a sneak attack as long as you qualify for it. Which is kind of counterintuitive, considering that we're a character that is focused on stealing that kill, but we kind of don't want to steal the kill so that we can have an off-turn reaction attack. One way I would almost like to see this enhanced is, remember, this is a very limited feature. We can't use it all that often. Is that if it's us who reduces that enemy to 0 hit points, it would be nice to be able to use this and deliver a second sneak attack on that turn. That would be nice. If there was an exception to the 1 sneak attack per round for this feature, I think that'd be cool. And so those are the 2 ways I'd think I'd want this to see this enhanced, and I'll be letting them know when I do my survey. And the second thing we get at level 3 is Dread Allegiance. And this is where we choose which of those 3 dead gods we're going to gain power from, Bane, Baal, or Merkel. And you can see here we're going to get a damage resistance based on that god and a cantrip. The damage resistances that each one provides actually make a ton of sense. Bane is a god of tyranny, so he's about, imposing on creatures. Psychic makes sense. Baal is murder, so poison makes sense. Merkel is death. Necrotic makes sense. Cantrips, they just pick cantrips. Chill Touch for Merkel makes a lot of sense. Whether Blade Ward or Minor Illusion makes sense, I don't know, but they're both good cantrips. So I'm glad to see them here. So if I chose Bane, Psychic is probably the least commonly encountered damage of these damage types, but Minor Illusion is a very good cantrip. The one that kind of sticks out to me as maybe the best option is Baal, because poison is a common type of damage. and Blade Ward is a good cantrip. So you kind of get good options on both sides there. So that's level 3. And I would say I think it could use a little more under the Bloodthirst. To me, that could use a little bit of a tune-up, but it's not bad. It's not bad, and it's cool. I think the idea of, the guy who finishes off your target, that's something people play now. So why not give them a subclass so they can enjoy it more? At level 9, we get Strike Fear, and this is very common with the rogue subclasses, is we get a unique way to use our Cunning Strike. And this one, we get Terrify, costs 1d6, so at level 9, you're doing 5d6 sneak attack damage, so you do 4d6, and you'd get this additional effect. The target must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw, or it has the Frightened condition for 1 minute. And a lot of these Cunning Strike actions, it's like 1 round, so 1 minute is good. Now they get a saving throw at the, on the end of each of their turns? Yeah, end of each of their turns. So it's probably not lasting a minute, but there's a good chance it could last more than 1 round. And 1d6 is a fairly low cost. I mean, if we're thinking level 9, our Bloodthirst, if we happen to be inflicting that, would be doing 5 extra points of damage. That more than would pay for the Terrify if we wanted to throw that on. However, once again, these features don't necessarily synergize. Because if a creature is bloodied and we're doing a ton of damage to it with our hit, is there, what is the odds that that creature's even going to be alive when we're done? If it's likely to be down, then I probably don't care about frightening it because it's dead. So if I'm finishing off creatures that are almost dead, I'm not sure frightening them is that big a deal. And I might not want to give up that 1d6 that might make that difference. So I like the frightened effect for this character. I don't necessarily like it as a cunning action for this character. And then we go to 13th level and we get Aura of Malevolence. You radiate a malignant power associated with one of the dead 3. At the start of each of your turns, each creature of your choice within 10-foot emanation originating from you takes damage equal to your intelligence modifier. The damage type is the same as the damage resistance granted by your choice in the Dread Allegiance feature. Damage dealt by this aura ignores resistance. The aura is inactive while you have the incapacitated condition. This reminds me very much of what we saw with the Winterwalker Ranger. Gets a similar aura at 15th level, except it's a 15-foot aura and it does 2d4 damage. But 2d4 on average is 5 points. Here, if we're focused on intelligence, we would expect that to be 5 points. And in both cases, the damage is just automatic. So they are very similar. The emanation here is smaller, but we don't have to be concentrating on a spell. Also, this ignores resistance, which the Winterwalker feature did not. And when I look at these 3 damage types, we've got Psychic, Poison, and Necrotic. All 3 of these are damage types that sometimes creatures are immune to. And if creatures are immune to them, then ignoring resistance doesn't matter. So just keep that in mind. It doesn't mean this damage is super reliable. It just means that it's avoiding resistance, not immunity. Still, now we're starting to add different ways to do additional damage together. So we're probably doing an extra 5 points of damage to a single target, potentially multiple targets, right? Because it is an emanation. And then we start adding that on with Bloodthirst, and, we're starting to add additional points of damage. And then we get to level 17, and we're going to add a little more damage. So first we get Battle Tyrant. You have advantage on attack rolls against any creature with the Frightened condition, and I appreciate that we finally got a little bit of synergy here, because this actually works with Strike Fear. So we can use Strike Fear, we can, frighten the target, then if it's still frightened the next time we attack, remember, we're only getting 1 attack with a rogue. We don't have extra attack, but we'll have advantage on the attack roll. And then Murderous Intent. When you roll for your sneak attack damage, you treat a roll of 1 or 2 on the die as a 3. And so sneak attack, of course, is the iconic big feature for the rogue. So we're improving our sneak attack, and that is nice. And this one sounds like a lot, but it's actually not that much. I'll bring up the stats here for us. So sneak attack is a matter of d6s. Average result on a d6 is 3.5. With Dread Incarnate, we are basically, to figure out the average, we add 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 divided by 6. That's 24 divided by 6 means 4. So our average damage per d6 goes from 3.5 to 4. It sounds like it's more than 0.5, right? Because d6, 1s and 2s are all treated as 3s, feels like it should be more than that. But it's not. It's 4. It's 0.5 higher than it normally would be. So when we're doing 96 sneak attack damage, which we would be doing at 17th level, our normal sneak attack damage would be 31.5. And with this feature, it would be 36. So that's 4.5 difference. The nice thing, though, is if you've played a rogue once in a while, you just roll really bad on your sneak attack, you're not going to roll too bad. You can't roll less than a 27 on 96 with this feature. So it does prevent those like really low numbers. Though, the more dice you add to your sneak attack, and we're already at 96, the less likely it is that you're going to roll significantly below average. And that's the entire subclass. And I get the thematics of this here. We're a rogue that likes to kill things. So we are waiting for that enemy to be almost down, and then we go in, we finish it off. That's reasonable thematics to me. What bothers me is I'm not sure this is mechanically strong enough. The Bloodthirst, I think, should be dialed up a notch. At level 3, Bloodthirst definitely does not compare to Assassinate, though we do get Dread Allegiance, and Dread Allegiance is okay. We're getting a damage resistance, and we're getting a cantrip. It's okay. But yeah, no, I still think Bloodthirst could be dialed up a bit. And then Strike Fear, I don't know, like, do I want to use this? I guess on round 1 I'd want to use this, right? When I'm not attacking a bloodied creature, likely. Then I want to Terrify them, and then on following rounds I don't use it. So I guess it's okay, but it's our only level 9 feature. And it kind of feels a little like we wait a long time. We go from level 3 to level 9, and then we're going to get a feature that maybe we use on round 1, maybe. Doesn't feel that impactful to me. Then we get Aura of Malevolence, which is pretty good. I think this one is pretty good, and I like that it ignores resistance. I wish the Winter Walker had that as well. And Dread Incarnate also feels decent to me, though some rogues have really great subclass features at level 17. This one isn't really great. It's okay. So I like the thematics here. I like the way the mechanics have started to go to, reward a certain play type, but I don't think it's gone far enough. So I'd like to see a little bit more here, a little bit of a dial up on this one. So I think this is a good start. I like the subclass as an idea, and I'd just like to see a little bit more on it because I think it is not quite where the other rogue subclasses are. And for some of these subclasses, it feels like there's a dial up, but not here. I don't think this feels like a dial up at all, and I think it could at least be even. So I will be letting them know, and if you would like to let them know, the survey is February 4th, and if you disagree, by all means, let them know what you think. Don't let them know what I think. And so that is the Scion of 3 Rogue, and we're going to talk about the Spellfire Sorcerer in my next video. So I hope you will join me for that. Otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.